Hey, what's up? This is Zach here. Super excited to be at this amazing side event with D3, Doma Protocol. I'm here with Fred, one of the co-founders. Super excited to be here. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So today you told me that you're here to educate and not fluff, which I can appreciate. Can you tell us in the best way you can, like, what are you trying to educate people on about domains and why is it important?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is educating people on the fact that internet domains are critical internet infrastructure trusted by, 200 plus governments throughout the world, accessed by 5 billion people worldwide, therefore powers all of humanity. And I'm talking about internet domains, stuff that you and I visit, Amazon.com or WhiteHouse.gov, or send an email to your parents or to your colleague, right? And I think this type of domain name has been kind of used and sort of, misinterpreted, I'd say, during the previous cycles. And I'm here to just explain and educate what internet domains are.
And what do you think people don't understand about internet domains that you wish they would, or that you want to educate them on?
Yeah, we have sure. It's one of my favorite topics, actually. At home, we have a very, very clear policy on we like real Gucci, we don't like fake Gucci.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Web3 is all too often kind of come up with their own nomenclatures and just kind of relied on the masses to think it's real. So we like to focus on the real domains. They're called DNS domains. Everything else is considered what's called an alt root. It doesn't actually work on the root internet. It doesn't work on the real domain name system, right? You can't look up an IP address in your browser or your phone based off of an application, right? So I'm here to educate the fact that real domains, and then there's non-real domains.
What would you say is an example of a non-real domain?
Sure, anything that has like a single letter or single digit in extension, things like Zach.x. You're actually not allowed to have single letters in the extension as dictated by ICANN, which is known as the Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers. They're a multi-stakeholder organization. They maintain the whole DNS system. Yeah, so anything with a single dot something doesn't work. But they've been sold as a real domain to Web3, who kind of didn't know better 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago.
How did that happen?
To be honest with you, I don't know. You would assume in any sort of industry, people kind of understand what like a fake Gucci versus a real Gucci is. No, I shouldn't say that. I visit some of those. We've all kind of walked down the streets of New York probably and still see some people kind of like dishing goods, and you kind of looks right, smells right, but it's not really real. And again, when you add the speculative element, people either making or losing money based on this stuff. People tend to believe, unfortunately, in wildfire, the kind of the story that they're fed at any given time. Whereas, like I said, I'm here to kind of help look at it from another perspective. The stuff that works, the stuff that's real, the stuff that's been around and been working for like 30 or 40 years is what I deal with. And what I'd love to educate folks in your audience on, today.
Awesome. I think you said something earlier that kind of caught my attention. You said like wallets are domains. Your domains could be wallets. Did I say that right?
Yes. So to add even more confusion these days, alt-root domains years ago were sold as pretty much NFTs and wallet addresses. Now, if you look at a real domain today, let's just, for example, like Zach.com, you can actually map that to your wallet address by turning on something called DNS-sec or DNS security and adding a DNS-TXT record that you may do at like GoDaddy or Namecheap or what have you. In fact, DNS, which is a popular Web3 project, they've actually made these backward compatible bridges to the Web2 world by actually helping users set a DNS-TXT record, right? If you own Zach.eth, right?
And how do you see this kind of evolving going forward? And with fractionalization, these different things.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for domains? Is everyone's domain going to be fractionalized and basically trading so you can see the real-time value of it?
So yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So fractionalization has different meanings to different people, I'd say. Even with the domain industry, some people believe fractionalization means selling NFTs or sub NFTs of your domain.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like us feel that like, hey, you know what? To truly kind of take a domain name and chop it up into a bunch of pieces, the best model for that might be like an ERC20 or fungible token, right? Ultimately, what people are used to kind of buying and trading, speculating off of these days, right? So as you probably heard from the talk from Michael, we're excited to also educate folks on what, fractional launchpads for real domains means. It just means that basically you could take a domain name, like a real domain name, like I'm at Zach.com. Why do I keep on saying this?
I love it. I need that domain.
Zach.com. And immediately, once you fractionalize it, tokenize it on Doma, you can then create like a million or like 100 million token supply, fungible token supply on that asset, right? Obviously, the asset, the domain is locked. The smart contract is locked at the registrar, which we facilitate. But once it's locked, it's essentially custodialized, And I'm not into, I don't know anything, although I've read interesting stories about, hey, custodializing houses on chain. Okay. Custodializing Rolex watches. Okay. Sounds like a lot of shipping and receiving and a poor guy in the warehouse. But the benefit of domain names is that they're digitally native to begin with, and they always have been ever since the 90s. So you kind of custodialize that. You have a trusted chain. You have a trusted partner that brings that to market. The rest, you allow people to buy, whether it's one token or even maybe like a million tokens or even more. And what they get is utility from day one. And they get a subdomain, right? Of like one or 1111.mat.com or what have you. So we're really enhancing and trying to preach the value add and the baked in utility of domain names from day one. As much as we were talking about bringing this asset class on chain and doing stuff like selling, a million or more pieces of it.
Do you expect this to kind of just catch on like wildfire? Like, because I think this is going to go very quickly in terms of adoption.
Well, I go back to what Sam Altman from OpenAI posted about a year or two ago. Just put one word on the next post. It was chat.com. That was it. Now we can all visit, ChatGPT by simply visiting chat.com. I think everybody kind of understands and knows that these premium properties have a lot of value. They just don't know how to access it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they can't afford the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. If I wanted to buy a chat.com or like I don't even know where to start. But maybe if they knew that especially within the Web3 circles with 400 million unique wallet addresses and people trading all kinds of stuff, including dog shit memes and all that stuff, maybe there could be a discovery process to buy a piece of something that's real. And if that happens, I think it's good for registrars who custodialize and hopefully get more business and more registrations of .coms and .xyzs or .ais, what have you, or even like .games. Good for registrars, which essentially are retail storefronts for domain names. It's good for domain owners or domain investors because they're like, hey, you know what? Now I can buy more land. Or maybe I sold a piece of my other land, got more liquidity, and now I can buy some more property. Right? Just like a real estate analogy. And of course, for end users, you're going to buy a piece of your favorite property. I don't want to buy a piece of like its waterfront property in Miami Beach or whatever, but I could probably buy something more accessible for a premium like virtual piece of land, like a chat.com in the future.
When you think of like this tokenization model, how quickly will people be able to tokenize or fractionalize their websites or their domains?
In a few minutes.
A few minutes.
Yeah,
wow.
You go to Mizu, mizu.xyz, and let's just say you own, I own rtb.net because I used to be in the ad tech business. RTB means real-time bidding. I used to have rtb.com, but I sold it. Probably too low years ago. But again, that's a very common story. So if I own rtb.net, maybe it's parked at like a registrar, I'll move it over to our custodial registrar, right? And then I click a button and it creates the entire fungible supply with a few clicks of a button. Now, obviously, I have some minimum parameters, like I think rtb.net's worth at least several $100,000. Can it float to $1 million or more? Maybe. But my alternatives are, it's just going to be stuck in my wallet, or it's going to be stuck in my registrar account. Wouldn't I want to try at least some level of price discovery, or even maybe sell 5% or 10%, or even maybe all of my domains at my own discretion or my own terms, and get USDC or ETH in my wallet? Why wouldn't I? My domain is going to stay safe. I'm not relinquishing the ability to sell my domains from whatever, some Web1 company that comes around and wants to give me a big offer. It's really now on my terms, on my control, and ultimately about getting me more liquidity on my domain name, r2b.net.
And will you be able to set like a minimum, like a listing token price? Or
Yeah.
how do you kind of prevent, I guess, like market manipulation around prices of websites? Like, I don't know, like market makers coming in or different things like that. Or do you want that?
Well, we get asking these questions from people who own premium domain names, right? As well. If I held a domain name, let's say Fred.com, which I obviously don't own Fred.com. I think it's a jewelry store. But let's just say I own Fred.com and I have done for 20, 25 years. My annual carrying cost is just $10,
Right.
thereabouts on GoDaddy. So it's very, very small compared to the value of Fred.com. I may want to just try something more to get more eyeballs coming by my storefront, whether that storefront is a smart contract, whether it's me hosting a landing page powered by Mizu, right? And it's literally, you go to Fred.com, imagine instead of seeing like a jewelry store, maybe you see like literally like a Hyperliquid like or kind of DEX like interface, very, very familiar with Web3. You know, all the kind of indicators to sort of drive people to kind of want to buy a piece of something real. And, you know, everybody has a trading view charts, everybody has a buy and sell marker, everybody sees trusted transaction history, right? If you can make that transaction familiar to the buyers in Web3, we believe that it's a win-win for everybody, right? And going back to what I said before, you're not buying vaporware, you're actually buying something that gives you access to a subdomain, which you can use for your website, you can use for your email, you can even use to map to your wallet address, right? So it's utility from day one.
How many domains or what percent of domains do you think will be tokenized in the next 10 years?
I'd say well over 100 million real domains, well over 100 million real domains. I think you'll see that us at D3 and Doma being leading charge of that. And just to give you some context, there's just under 400 million real domains today, about 370 million real domains, including .com, .ai, .xyz and stuff. And to give you a frame of reference, back in 2010, there was about 150 million. So,
Wow, so it's growing very fast.
The market's growing.
How do you think AI could impact your business?
We are starting to see AI help, spin logos for a domain name, help appraise the value of a portfolio, much like appraising a house, and not just sort of subjective data points, but actually gathering data from the web and applying basically some level of like simplistic LLMs too to kind of come up with a price. But to be honest with you, like beyond searches and pricing and maybe some website builders, like we're only scratching the surface. I'd say a lot of AI use case in the future can be like agent to agent payments. My agent should be able to visit my website, or I should be able to give my agent like an email address, and they might just be able to pay like your agents for something without having to go through too much of a complicated stack, right? If on the receiving end, all I do is set my wallet address and my DNS-TXT worker. Something really simple. Compliance, right? We've seen Anthropic got hit with a $1.5 billion lawsuit from a bunch of...
They can afford it. No. It sucks though.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see a lot of delineation going forward between like fair use stuff, like copyright law and contract law. I think I heard, President Trump talk about this about a couple of months ago, which was like fair use stuff, effectively stuff that we scrape and use from all different websites out there. There's not going to be, which effectively are domain names, by the way. Yeah, that stuff can probably be used forever for training and having an AI or LM understand Moby Dick, what the context was in Moby Dick. But that's a clear difference from copying pages and regurgitating it from pages out of Moby Dick. Now that's just straight up contract like law, plagiarism, and infringement. And President Trump said that's absolutely illegal. So there's a saying in our domain industry: all things lead to a domain.
I love that.
All things do lead.
You need that on a t-shirt.
Yes. So I think people will start realizing that AI, IP rights, and even domain names go actually more hand in hand than people think.
How so?
Because oftentimes the simplest solution is probably the best one, right? Don't get me wrong. I love the advancements in MCP. I love the fact that Google recently came up with AP2, which is this new sort of agent-to-agent payment infrastructure, and that's great for adoption. It's great for developers. I'm just here to say, hey, there's this other thing too. It's called the internet. It's called DNS. It powers 5 billion people. It could power the next 50 billion agents. If you kind of use things on existing plumbing, hey, and the friction is such that, hey, you, me, or our dad, or parents, or older generations could easily set it up, then why not?
Yeah.
At the very least, have it as a backup compared to app, AI-related agent stuff. That's all.
Where does the blockchain component come in? Like, why do you need crypto and or blockchain to make this possible? Because you do it without it?
For what element?
Just like the tokenization of it.
Sure. I tell this to my team, about 40 people all the time. I say, stop talking about technology. All blockchain is, internally at least, we're trying to sell people on like common sense. Back in the 1970s, Larry Ellison came up with the relational database, and I think it's like first selling the stuff to like the U.S. government, right? Relational databases, ooh, but at the time, like they didn't have it. Today, all blockchain is just an improved, instead of centralized but distributed ledger. It's just a fancy database, in my opinion. Granted, I'm a computer science grad, and I've done a bunch of CTO work before, and I think the reason why blockchain works for this stuff is because there's a provable supply. There's a provable record of my domain really came on chain. I could trust that. There's really a 100 million fungible supply on Zach.com. You could trust that. There's a smart contract or a transaction hash. I can trust that. Whereas before, there wasn't that in the domain industry, right? It's just a bunch of fragmented networks, essentially a bunch of fragmented Oracle or MySQL databases. And I just don't think that model I just don't think we're going to go back to that model for the domain industry. So distributed ledger for the domain industry is really here to stay, but for a reason to kind of improve transparency, security, and of course, facilitating DeFi and transactional level activity.
Why did you guys decide to do this event here in Korea?
Number one, I love Korea.
So do I.
Great
barbecue, great people.
It's great barbecue. We're located in downtown LA, and for like the past 20, 25 years, we would go to Koreatown just to have our company drinks, events, Korean barbecue. I think it's a big crypto market over here, kind of hungry for real projects, like real assets, real kind of narratives, and differentiated narratives, right? And I think the people here are very, very they get behind stuff in a good way once they trust it, once they believe in it, as opposed to maybe some other markets where either the Korean market wasn't as early enough, or maybe it's too fragmented, or there's like 2,100 different players out there. So I feel like it's a fresh proving ground, and if we can kind of give Korea like a head start in kind of how to leverage buying fractions of a domain name, to borrow, lend, trade against them, it'd be a nice gift into this ecosystem over here. So I'm here to educate. Going back to my prior point.
Do you think that when the tokenization of domains comes out and fractionalization, there's going to be a lot of speculation on certain domains, kind of like almost like the way people speculate on creators now with like pump fund or these different things? Like, do you see any kind of correlation there?
Well, I'll tell you that people have been speculating on domain names for decades.
That's true. There's just no easy price discovery.
Exactly. I bought software.ai for $12,000. I bought agent.ai for $12,000 10 years ago from a dude in Turkey. Nobody would have ever known that they were now worth 10 to 100x more. But I thought the name was cool. And it's like, if you buy one, it's always going to work. And that domain is never going to go away, right? And it's all very unique, right? People have been trading and speculating this for a while, but just with 1.0 methods. And the reason why part of our slogan is own and trade the internet is now for the first time you can actually do it. Forget about blockchain. You can just now do it and really have a transaction happen in seconds and don't have to wait a few weeks. You really pay a substantially less transaction fee when you're doing on-chain, as opposed to paying a 25 to 30% commission to a broker. Taking, USDC now, as opposed to only paying for that whole or fraction of a domain name using Wire ACH credit card and having it not work on weekends. So it's like just a lot of reasons why I think blockchain makes sense for this stuff. We're just transforming an old industry and kind of modernizing it. We're not trying to invent a new industry. We're not, right? The proof points are already there. We're trying to create a solution to a problem.
How big of a market do you think I think you said there'll be 100 million that you believe will be tokenized over the next 10 years?
I think all the domains will be tokenized over the
All of
next
them.
few years. Yeah.
Even big companies?
Oh yeah, because I think that if you register a domain name at a registrar, just like they're keeping a record on their own internal databases, they'll also probably create a record on the blockchain as well, because their users are going to start demanding it. It's like listing a house in the United States or like in Seattle. It's like you list, but it implies on this thing called MLS. And once you do so, people don't even think about it anymore, because without MLS, at least in the States, you don't get the local and national exposure, and even global exposure. People in China literally look at properties in Seattle and in Southern California based off it being on the MLS. And if that didn't happen, the market would be much less in traditional real estate. And I think that market is what, $30 trillion or something like that. And global is even more.
Yeah.
Right. And the domain asset, to your question, there's just over 400 million of these things. It's about a $350 billion industry.
Oh, it's going to grow.
If you look at the asset class itself, I think easily could grow to a $2 trillion industry if you're putting these type of efficiencies.
Is there any potential drawbacks you see to tokenizing it?
Probably initial step. Like with an initial step, like in any market, there's going to be people who maybe are going to be early adopters, late adopters, and non-adopters at all. But I think people are smart. I think people ultimately will get to know, even like 70-year-old cab drivers that I'm seeing over here. They can operate like a phone, like a whiz. QR codes way better than folks I see like even in the United States. I think if you put the right, if people are smart, everybody on this planet is smart. People who know and use connected devices, they'll get it. Especially when you kind of position it like you're trying to reduce friction, you're trying to help them make more money, right? And they can sort of tie their livelihood to it, kind of like with the Maslow's pyramid. I think people will pick it up pretty quickly. But there is going to be some level of early skepticism until the proof points are established. But I will say that this industry, this domain industry that I've been a part of for the past 25 years, is you establish 3 success cases and show how people are making more money. They'll all fall in droves. I can already see it.
When you talk, because you said they're having some builders coming in who are building on Doma. What does that look like? Like, because I think it's open. Is it open source? Or how does that work?
It's not an open source project, but basically blockchains are built in the open. We have a ton of docs available on docs.doma.xyz on the chain side. So if you're a registrar, if you're an end user, if you're a app developer, you can get going like today. You can get going today, and we offer a ton of support, including our $1 million USC grant program called Doma Forge.
Tell me about the grant program.
Yeah, teams who want to build on Doma. What's exciting about our grant program and Web3 in general is because a lot of the developers are hungry for new, unique, trusted platforms to build on, right? There's only so many DEXs, there's only so many perps, there's only so many platforms you can effectively buy treasury yield, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the great interview. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up?
But it's not something Genzio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a hive.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We're back at the Genzio Media House.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today.